Welcome to the Scholars Chair. With us today is author and educator Ruby Amatullah. Our focus of discussion is in the pursuit of reclaiming America.
We have with us writer and geopolitical analyst Ruby Amatullah. Welcome to the Scholars Chair, Sister Ruby. Our focus topic is on the pursuit of reclaiming America, which I think is very timely. We need to revisit the American values that we seem to have temporarily forgotten a little bit. And I appreciate your article very much because it reminded me of things that I had since put on the back burner. But I must ask of you, you wrote in your article a very interesting idea. You said since the Cold War, America has trampled upon its core principles. Can you explain to our audience what are the core principles that you're referring to, and how have we declined?
Well, I have been studying American history for some time, though history is not my subject, but it has been my preoccupation for last 10 years or so, and as religion and as politics and geopolitics. So the main focus of my thinking and writing is actually working against injustices, um, establishing, contributing towards good governance and democracy. Um, and wherever I go and wherever I'm writing, I write many paper in the Middle East, and also I wrote in the United States. I have been writing in Bangladesh papers and Asia Times and Kathmandu Times, and there are various South Asian papers that publish my papers, and Daily Star and Dhaka Tribune and other papers, a whole bunch.
Yeah.
But I try to focus on that justice and good governance, welfare, social justice. Those are my focus. So I have to know the greater forces in politics, geopolitics, religion, and of course economics and sociology. So all these things combined, then I can have a better idea about my what I am talking about, what I think. So going back to your question, United States, when it was created in 1776, it was based on democratic principles. The founding leaders were profoundly influenced by the many European enlightened writers and thinkers who were promoting about human rights and equality, and that a government should be deriving its legitimacy from the people it rules. And so the ultimate power should rest on the people and not on a monarchy or an authoritarian figure or military figure. It should rest on the people. So that was the starting point. And so the Declaration of Independence, I think, is a phenomenal statement, a universal statement that appeals to all people in all time, everywhere. That is, all people are created, and I'm paraphrasing the declaration, that all people are created equal and they are endowed with inalienable rights or human rights and by their creator. So it is a profoundly fundamental and universal statement. But at that time, the reality was not anything near to this declaration, this altruistic mission and ideas and all that, because half of the population, women folks, could not vote, and there are a substantial segment of the society who were slaves. But America embarked on many struggles in 250 years. And so besides the Revolutionary War to fight a colonial ruler, at that time the mighty superpower, Britain, and ousted that power to establish first democracy in the modern time. And, and its constitution still is a blueprint for democracy in the world. Since its inception, American ideas, America's constitution and the system, democratic system, has actually remained an example for the rest of mankind. And many nations have gravitated towards these democratic values, which is also the fundamental human universal values, that all people are created equal, they have human rights, and they have dignity, and a government should be established. The function of government is to uphold these human rights of citizens and deliver social justice and deliver common good. These are the fundamental ideas of a government that for which the Constitution was written. So I'm cutting short. I'm coming to then the civil war took place, and it was really bloody 4-year civil war to abolish slavery. And at that time, American mindset was heavily influenced by thinkers like Henry David Thoreau and his civil disobedience, and Abraham Lincoln's ideas and his speeches and leadership. All these things actually ingrained a notch higher in materializing the founding principles and values of the United States. And then there are a lot of other struggles like collective bargaining movement to address workers' rights and workers' welfare, and women's liberation movement at the turn of the century, 20th century, to bring about gender parity, and then civil rights movement to establish equality of all citizens, irrespective of race, color, religion, and etc., etc. So through these struggles, step by step, America has gained some fundamental ideas, became ingrained in the psyche of the nation and in the mindset of the nation. Through each struggle, that ladder went up, a notch up. And that is what I'm talking about, that there is a core national values of America that was cultivated and gained, nurtured, and flourished in the nation. And that core national values are the core democratic values and human rights and dignity and all those things that all people cherish everywhere. So that is what I am talking about, this core national values.
So human rights, freedom and justice, and of course liberty for everyone is some of the values that we have kind of being challenged at this present political moment. You have written quite extensively on these ideas. I've been looking at some of your writings over the years, and you've been quite focused on these. Tell me, how does this new awareness, awakening of the current state of Israel, we are discovering that Israel has some I would say political power in the country that is affecting our democracy, and even helping or forcing our political movement to create wars in defense of Israel. Do you think that this is a reality, and how does that happen? How is that happening?
So may I paraphrase your question,
Of
if I
course,
may?
yes.
If I may, that what you are saying, that America has been such a democratic country,
Yeah.
and it has cultivated and acquired these democratic values in the mindset of the nation. And how come that nation has been brought to this level that we are in today?
Right.
And democracy has become at best dysfunctional, and what at worst I think it is an oligarchy and authoritarian rule already. So um, so this is something requires a entire episode on this, but I will try to make it brief.
Yes.
I think that in any society, in anywhere in the world, there are two classes of people. One is the elites, and they are the top people of business, um, military, and politicians. They are the elites of the society, and generally, their interest and their aspiration goes becomes become a conflict with the aspiration and interest of the common people of a society, because these elites want privileges. These elites want government to serve them and not the people, and give them special privileges, advantages through laws and rules and regulations. So they exert a predatory influence on the government and society. Um, so I will come to that. So that is a universal phenomenon in. So people have fought against that time and again. That's why there are so many revolutions took place and changes took place, and gradually the whole world has been gravitating to democratic values. Even if you go to China and take surveys, and there are surveys that demonstrated that Chinese people also want more freedom and more equality and that kind of thing. This has becoming the Muslim world. If you go back 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago, even you'll find some extremists even today who think democracy is not compatible with Islam. And therefore, voting and democracy, these systems are systems of uh, unbelievers and should be kafir, should not be rejected. For centuries, it is such a um, shall I call, the violation
Yeah.
of Quranic principles, and that is why I studied Quran so intensely. Quran actually lays down democratic principles,
You know, that
principles,
was just about
not the system.
that was my
But
next.
I'm not going to go into that.
No, no, no.
So
I think that's worthy of going into, because that was the next question I was going to ask you. What is this connection? The values that are found in the Quran are in my view, um, has guided the founding fathers to these fundamental principles. I mean, Jefferson
yes,
was an owner of his own Quran. So, and when you read his writings on religious freedom, it's almost like he picked the words almost directly from the Quran and placed it in his writings. I don't know if you've read it or not, but
well,
it's quite remarkable.
before I talk about Quran, I want to point out something, that the very first written constitution in history is Sahifat al-Madina, the Medina Charter, the charter that Prophet, peace be upon him, has actually dictated the it was production of consensus building, the terms and conditions with which he would govern, or the people will govern Medina. He would govern Medina.
Yeah.
That's Charter of Medina lays down 47 clauses. And Aziza al-Hibri is a very contemporary constitutional expert. And there are other experts also say the same thing, that there are amazing fundamental similarities between the Constitution of Medina and the Constitution of the United States, framed 11 centuries later. So how come these similarities? Jefferson had Quran in his library, and when his library burned down, he again ordered the Quran translation. He liked, there is a big discussion. There is a link there. And the historians have found that link, why there are similarities in the United States. There is a Indian group, Cherokee, and they actually, when before they migrated, they were exposed to people, expeditious people from the other side of Atlantic, Saudi Arabia and Makkah, Medina, and all those places. And it is said that they were exposed to that system, and they adopted the system. Jefferson liked that system very much. Now, I'm coming to the Quran. So what Quran is saying? Most important thing Quran is saying, Quran is not giving you a detailed system. It is giving the principles.
Right.
The principle, first principle is the relationship between God and a human being. He's saying that all human beings are his representatives, Khalifa, on earth. So they are supposed to run their affair, a worldly affair, the way God manages the universe, his creation. How? With balance, with care, with compassion, with justice. And these are the qualities that are repeated in the Quran. So that is a fundamental thing. So if all people are Khalifa, okay, in a society, say for example, in all people in America are Khalifa, okay, a group of Khalifa cannot rule other Khalifa without taking their consent.
Right.
It is a direct conclusion from there. I mean, say I want to rule a place. I cannot rule that place because I am as equal to the other caliphs of that society.
Right.
I have to ask their permission whether if I am capable, can I rule them? So my legitimacy will be derived from the people I'll be ruling over. That's the fundamental principles coming right from the Quran. Then Quran is giving the human rights, the rights. It's given all over the Quran. I'm just summarizing in one place.
Sure.
First of all, life is sacrosanct. And it says that if one innocent life is killed, to God, it would feel like that person has killed the entire humanity. If you can kill one person for no reason, you can kill others. So that crime against humanity has been defined by factor of one in Quran, whereas 14 centuries later, United Nations and defined it, I think about something 1,000, 2,000, whatever, I don't know the numbers, but big numbers.
Yes.
But anyway, so life is sacrosanct. And so everybody's life, it is not Muslim life, Christian life, Jewish life, Hindu life, or people who do not even believe in God. Every life is sacrosanct. And society must preserve that way. These are human rights that a human being acquires at the time of birth. By being a human being, he has this right from his creator. So society cannot give or take these rights. What is the other rights? There are rights of equality comes from the Khalifa thing. All human beings are God's Khalifa. So people's dignity equal all over the world in mankind. So it is the first principle. Then there are right to privacy, right to freedom, no compulsion in matters of religion. And Prophet never forced any person to become a Muslim or a follower of the Quran or him. Under him, there are a lot of people who didn't accept him as prophet.
Yes.
He did usual business with them. So there is no compulsion in religion, and the Medina Charter lays down a federal system. It's a kind of little bit primitive because it came to the tribal societies. Those are the tribal background with the tribal culture. So, but it is a federal system. How come? First, it defined the greater Ummah as all people living within the geographical boundary of Medina. This is a fantastic definition. Today's nationhood, a lot of countries struggle with that. It should be defined with our language. It should be defined by we are Muslim majority, it's a Muslim majority, Muslim country, that kind of thing. Quran said, I mean, the Prophet said, or the Charter of Medina said, no. All people living within the geographical boundary of Medina is part of greater Ummah. Says Ummah is like a definition of nationhood. So that then it's the federal system is this, that the Jews and the pagans and Muslims, they have their own religion, own lifestyle, and they will be free to practice their religion, free to pursue their lifestyle and ambitions and all that, whatever the cultures and everything, they are free to practice their culture, their norm, and their social interactions and all that. Only responsibility is that in time of defense, that Medina people will be coming. And there is also an option, because most of the war was fought or launched against the Muslims because they are Muslim. So it was a religious war. So Prophet gave the choices that you can come and fight with us as a defense, or if you want to withdraw, you can withdraw also. But Muslims have to fight for their defense. Otherwise, they would be annihilated. Then other thing is the maintaining the common law and order. There are certain things, and 47 clauses lays down that it gives information about. And then it also protects lives of everybody, the security and dignity of people, of everybody. When the people from the Jewish people or pagan people came to Prophet to he was the arbiter. He was like a supreme judge. And to decide on a conflict, he would say, what your religious book says about this. Bring your religious book.
Yeah.
And according to that, this will be. So he respected, like Torah, he respected their pagan culture, or he respected what the others had. So this is, in a nutshell. I have gone too far. I think I'm taking too much time.
I think that's excellent, and I think that you are reinforcing from the Islamic Sunnah point of view the aspirations of the foundings of an American Constitution, and certainly in the Declaration of Independence, which you have mentioned. It seems that we, at this point in our history, American history, we have kind of.
I want to point one thing very important.
Yes.
There are scholars, Muslim scholars today, who think that American Constitution is a kind of Sharia for Muslims, because it is a system that upholds justice. The main thrust of the Quran is to uphold justice in society, social justice, and deliver justice for the members of a society. Okay. So U.S. Constitution is a very good instrument contributing towards that. So a lot of Muslims, there are fanatics, and they say that, this is not Sharia, this is not, this is pagan stuff and all this. But the real scholars come and declare that no, American Constitution could be a part of Sharia. It's a very good instrument. I want to emphasize, because there are non-Muslims probably will be hearing this program.
Sure. No, I think that there are great connections and I think reinforcements from an Islamic point of view in analyzing the American Constitution. I think it's very beneficial to Muslims as well as Muslims who are living here that realize that this country has been founded on those fundamental principles, and we need to support them as American Muslims here. And in doing so, we're recognizing, as you did in your article, that there has been a trampling of these values. And one of those problems is the rise of Zionism that has come out of this from the writings of Herschel, and is really an incredible non-religious idea and philosophy, and is really working against the fundamental principles of
An
our
undemocratic
and
idea also. It's
undemocratic.
a
I
secular
agree.
colonial project.
I agree with that. Now tell us from your point of view, what is Zionism in your view?
Well, Zionism from the beginning, which is adopted, this ideology was adopted by a group of lawyers, Jewish lawyers and elites, actually. They were elites. They
Yeah.
were not the common people.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the 19th century. And since then, their objective is to come to Palestine and occupy Palestine, somehow ousting most of the Palestinian indigenous people from
Right.
that land. They are not. They are the philosophy from the beginning is not for peaceful coexistence.
Yeah.
It is replacing the indigenous people completely, either drive them out, kill them, or whatever, persecute them. They will leave, and then the Jewish people, immigrant people, will be occupying Palestine. But remember, before Zionism was introduced in the early 20th century, and particularly after British mandate took control of Palestine in 1920s, Muslims, Christians, and Jews have lived peacefully side by side in that land.
That's right.
For almost 11th century without much problem. You know that Gaza, that Ilan Pape, a prominent Israeli historian, was saying that the Gaza was a town actually. And there, in the turn of this 20th century, that very prosperous town, because it was connecting from the coastline to some important places. And there the Jews, Christians, and Muslims have declared for peaceful coexistence and amazing interactions, social interactions with each other. That those things were completely knocked out by the incoming Jews from Europe with Zionist principles. That no, we cannot. There is no idea of coexistence. We have to occupy the land. So it's called settler colonialism or settler colonial project.
Some writers say that the Zionists were not religious people at all, not Jews nor Christians, but we do know that Zionism has found its way into churches and places of organization. It really is a very disturbing philosophy and political movement now. And it seems to me that we need to identify it and try to do something about it. What is the philosophy of this Zionism? You said that it was from the beginning. It was to occupy Palestine, right? Yeah.
Occupying Palestine and displacing indigenous people as much as they could.
Right.
That is their objective.
Yeah.
In 1928, I think the proposal came from Britain, that there would be a secular democratic state,
Yeah.
where the Arabs and Jews, at that time only 17% of the population between Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea, the Israel, was Jews, original Jews and the immigrant Jews, 70 to 20%. 80% were Arabs, Christians and Muslims. Mostly Muslim, there are Christians too. The Arabs accepted that equal power sharing arrangement.
I see.
But Zionists rejected it. It is in Ilan Pape's book.
Is that okay? This is very interesting. It is a very challenging philosophy, and it is causing us to recognize it and do something about it. And I want to just ask you, there are some people who are actually changing our political system in favor of Zionist support for Israel, and they are diminishing our democracy in the process. Can you give us some method or a way of identifying Zionism and doing something about it? Identifying Zionism and doing something about it. What is it that can help us?
Let me address that question from a little bit different angle. First of all, as I said, is that every society, and American society is not an exception. There are predatory forces even before Zionism was introduced, or Zionist people became very powerful in America.
Right.
There are other predatory forces. So at the height of the Cold War, an iconic professor, his name is C. Wright Mills. He's a professor was a professor at Columbia University, and he wrote a masterpiece book. At that time, the bestseller of all time, The Power Elite. And he, in 1956, at the height of the Cold War,
Sure.
and he identified that the top people of Wall Street, the top people of military, and corrupt politicians, those mostly senior politicians who are corrupt, they have interwoven interest. So they collude with each other and consolidate their collective power to exert their influence on the government to serve these predatory forces. So he termed them as power elite. Okay. And so what happened is that in 1956, Mills could not fathom that there would be another predatory forces that will be in existence, that will establish a stranglehold on the US government. Far superior, far more powerful and influential than the power elite he was talking about, like business and military and all that. So how did it happen? Israel was created in 1948, and with the help of Truman administration. And Truman administration actually did not want to do that, but he was threatened by the prominent Zionist leaders in New York and Washington that he was supposed to be defeated. Actually, he was unpopular because of the atomic bomb and all these things. I don't know, but then he would be defeated in 1948 election, most likely. And the Zionist leaders say to Truman that we will help you to be elected if you divide Palestine, Resolution 181 at the United Nations, and create a Jewish state in it. And his cabinet, and the most prominent figures like George Marshall, who was the Secretary of State, completely rejected this idea. They were vehemently against establishing a Jewish state in Palestine. And Truman said that you are not facing election. I am facing election. I'm going to do it anyway. So he did it. He participated. He manipulated the situation. Israel came into existence in 1948. 1947, the division Palestine was divided. Resolution 181. That was also a doing of Truman and his and other elites and all that.
I see.
So after that is Israel, and before that there were militia groups, Zionist militia group called Haganah. Haganah was established in 1920, and Irgun was established in 1930, and then Stern gang and Levi. These are non-state militia groups armed and trained by the British government and funded by the rich people of France and Britain. So Arabs were no match to these militia groups. They were established on the pretext that to safeguard Jewish security, but actually what they did is that they did massacres, they burned villages, they killed Arabs, and the many Arabs left their home country to other places, and that's what they were doing, driving Arabs out of the country.
Yeah.
So in coming to that, so they were successful. It's a long story because Britain actually benefited from this kind of thing. British mandate was a colonial rule, and it established a Zionist settler colonialism. What was the interest? Interest was that rich bankers gave. Excuse me, I can talk very much. Rich bankers like Rothschild gave a lot of money to the British government, financed the First World War to defeat Ottoman Empire, so that the Middle Eastern countries were released from Ottoman Empire. It's a really enigmatic history. I mean, the Jewish people have calculated this step by step.
Yeah.
So coming to the once Israel was established, those militia groups, fierce militia groups, became the ideal soldiers. And Israel perpetrated genocide to drive 750,000 Palestinians in 1948.
Yeah.
And it was covered up by the media, Western media, and all that, because they are influential.
Essentially what we're still going through. I mean, we're going through the same challenge. I think that Zionism is in fact a tremendous opposing philosophical movement against the establishment of democracy and how we think about
and
how we think about the other people of the world who want to accept democracy as a way of
interesting thing. Interesting thing is that when the world was thinking to establish democracy after the Second World War, a new world order came into existence, and the world was gravitated to become 36 countries became independent from colonial rule. And that was the time Zionists were saying that we want to establish a colonial rule. So it is an antithesis. It is an counter wave of freedom and democratic. So this is not a challenging ideology. This is a racist ideology, a colonial ideology. I mean, and I don't know how else to put it.
I think that's clear. But let me ask you this, because we're kind of running out of time, believe it or not. I wanted to ask you. You say in your writings that you still have confidence in America and American ideals. Why do you still remain high and hopeful of America per se?
I beg your pardon. I mean,
Why do
hope.
you why are you confident in American way of life and democracy, etc.?
Well, the- in 1960s, late 1960s and early 1970s, American people came to the street opposing, protesting against reckless militarism, dangerous nuclear race that America was doing with the Soviet Union and pushing the world to a dangerous place. And also Vietnam, there are 60,000 Americans were killed,
Yeah.
and 3 million Southeast Asians were killed in Vietnam War. A war that could have been easily avoided.
Avoided, yeah.
I will go into that in another episode.
Yeah.
So that is the time American people, their back was against the wall and they came to the street demanding, and it was several years that consistently they were on the streets demanding Washington make a U-turn, make a change. And an interesting thing is that Nixon administration in the early 1970s, 1972, actually first time realized that the tide is turning in the United States.
Mhm.
The people are not liking this Cold War, this militarism and proxy wars and all these things. So he decided to reach out to China, the the phenomenal diplomatic mission of China policy in 1972,
Yeah.
and that continued in the 70s. So the Soviet Union saw that how China was becoming prosperous because America was giving trade preferences and brought China to the world trade, part of the world trade community and all that. And the Soviet Union then became also very receptive to America's constructive engagement. And in the 80s, that America engaged with detente dialogue, diplomatic dialogue with Soviet Union. So in the 70s with the China policy, and 80s with detente, this constructive, visionary, um, diplomatic engagement policy
Mhm.
ended the Cold War.
Gotcha.
The Cold War was not ended by proxy war gain and proxy winning proxy wars and battles and all these things. Cold War never ended with wars by wars. Cold War was brought to end with a diplomacy and constructive engagement.
Very-
This is something that Americans today should actually be minding and keeping in mind about these things. The war on terror, 2-decade-long war on terror, was a futile, counterproductive project in which American taxpayers paid $8 trillion, and the outcome is all failure.
Right.
Failure in Afghanistan, failure in Iraq, and there was a surge of radicalism in the Islamic extremism and all that thing. So
Mhm.
the entire 2-decade thing was militaristic approach toward a solution for radicalism. It didn't work.
Mhm.
So this is again, we are coming to the same period. Again, the military industrial complex, the elites, colluding with the the Wall Street elites and the Zionist elites.
Mhm.
These are colluding with each other, becoming extremely powerful force, and to establish a stranglehold on the American government, and doing all the since 9/11, you see all these rotten things that are happening that I have never seen. These 40 years that I have been there and following and all that, I have never seen this kind of degradation, this kind of violation of human rights and values and all that.
Mhm.
But how did it come there? This is the mechanism. This is the thing that that since the 1990s, when Netanyahu came to power in 1996 in Likud party. The Likud party is an extreme Zionist group that was elected to power in 1996. And Netanyahu canceled Oslo Agreement, canceled all kinds of things. So they realized that they need to establish stranglehold on American government in order to do the heinous stuff that they are planning to do, like, Greater Israel, take, part of Syria, take part of Egypt, take the whole Palestine and Palestinians, either live as slaves or driven out. That kind of thing. You need a powerful ally because it's a 9 million people tiny nation in the Middle East. So what they did is first 1996 Telecommunication Act. 1996 Telecommunication Act was a product of a long-term lobby by the predatory forces or predatory elites that I mentioned. That, the Wall Street elites, the military industrial elites, the politicians, and the Zionist elites. What they did is that all the healthy rules and regulations of ownership of media, American media, was all removed, and the ownership was given to few oligarchs and billionaires, and they are pro-Israeli. That is the first blow and a lot of people, American people, do not know this. The first thing is that they captured the media. The media which will inform and brainwash the people, So they captured the media, the pillar of democracy. They destroyed it. The second campaign was campaign financing, and they employed enormous money in different cases in Supreme Court and all the lobby and everything. So the campaign finance rule came as Supreme Court released the limitations of corporations in contribution, campaign contribution. Corporations as an individual, artificial individual, are and can contribute as much they want in campaign. That is the gateway to kill democracy.
Yes.
Campaign finance is the real gateway, is the real key if you want to render a democracy.
So we have to put a cap on it or have a certain amount of money.
Because money is the factor that it's not merit. It is not sincerity.
I think that's right. And I think that one of the important possibilities is for the American people to recapture its power, and that is what we are doing at the moment with the No King protests that are happening in the U.S. across the country. Are you aware of this? I know you're in Bangladesh. Are you aware that there are like millions of people in the streets of America protesting against No King?
I could not follow the question.
Are you aware of the No Kings protest, mass protests here in the U.S.?
Yes.
Yes. You are, of course.
Yes. I was very much connected with the Black Lives Matter.
Right.
At that time, yeah.
Yes, this is
it started with Minneapolis, my place, Minneapolis.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's still going on.
Yeah.
I wanted to just get as a closing remark from you. Do you think cultural diversity is one of the major contributions to American success?
Major contribution
to American success, stability.
Well, I think that American people are very powerful catalysts of change in America and also in the rest of the world. That I have seen in late 60s and early 70s, that they have completely compelled the government to make a U-turn and the tide turn. Not only that, as a result, the globalization ensued because America engaged in trade and constructive diplomatic missions with China and the Soviet Union, and for that reason there was a wave of trade and constructive engagement that was sweeping the world. I mean, this country was doing business with its enemy. That country was doing business with his enemy. So they were saying that, you need to do business with your adversaries. So what? And we will become friends. So that kind of mentality, mindset change took place during the early periods of globalization. But then again, the corporations and transnational elites, transnational alliances of corporations and businesses, they again actually this rendered this globalization thing as a hostage of big money. Again, like so. The thing is that the American people, if they are aware, first of all, their awareness was taken away. They were put to sleep by distorting and misleading, misinforming through media. American media was captured by the elites. So they were feeding whatever they wanted. All the propaganda and all the kinds of things. American mind was inflicted with that wrong ideas and all these things. And they were I would say, in kind of in a silent mode and completely distracted with other things and failed to see what was going on in their backyard. So this is a time, the most important mission for you and me and for other people. And I think is to wake up the young generation Americans and who still have that core national values because they have a rich history behind them. And they have seen what their earlier generations have failed. And they can now take the torch and move forward. So this is the mission, to inform them, to groom them, to bring them to the political arena and elect them, and the Congress, Senate, and the decision making in Washington would change.
Yes. I hope that you're right, Amatullah. We are struggling to get our representatives to do the people's will. And I have never written to my representative as much as I'm writing now. And I am here in the state of Maryland. That's the first time I've ever got so politically involved. But we are going to do more and try to
I hope.
yes,
I hope.
to get America to return to its ideals,
I'm very optimistic about America.
Yeah.
I'm an optimistic person,
Yes.
but what I have read in the history, the rich history, and the values, the diversity, the immigrant nation, all these things coming together is a very rich culture that American people can actually practice, regain, reclaim, and also give it to the rest of the world.
I agree. Sister Ruby Amatullah, thank you for being on the Scholars Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Super. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Re1 Communications presents The Scholars Chair. At Focus, a book written by American philosopher John Rawls. The book's title is Justice as Fairness, a Restatement. To help us explore the writings of this famous philosopher, our guest is the president of the Minaret of Freedom Institute, author and educator, Dr. Ahmaduddin Ahmed. John Ross lists 5 fundamental ideas that are related to justice as fairness. 1. Fair system of cooperation. The idea of well-ordered society. The idea of a basic structure of such a society. The idea of the original position. And finally, the idea of citizens as free and equal. Dr. Maladine, are Raw's ideas relevant to a just society?
I think they are epistemologically necessary for his conception of a just society. In other words, while one can conceive of a just society without using these ideas, um, it's hard to imagine how one would go about negotiating a just society without these principles.
A just society, you must start off with an idea that the society has a fair system of cooperation. In other words, people are working to be fair in society.
Is that the concept of fairness is easier to understand than the concept of justice. Justice can be a very complicated idea. In other words, it sounds simple, that everybody gets just exactly what is right, but how do you decide that?
Yes.
Whereas the idea of fairness is much easier to understand. Children can tell you when something's not fair. Hey, that's not fair, they'll say.
So the idea that they are related is another discussion, but Rawls goes on to write that we might say that the fair terms of cooperation are fixed, and this is interesting. They are fixed by natural law, viewed either as God's law or given by prior or an independent moral order publicly known by rational intuition. He's not excluding it, is he? I mean, at first when I was reading it, that he was trying to exclude it altogether, but he's not. He's just not regarding it as being the only way to get to a fair and just society. Would you concur with that notion? If not, it's okay. What are your views?
He's just saying that he's just admitting that there are alternative theories of justice, and he's classifying them. So he says that there's 3 kinds. One is that, although the first 2 he actually puts as kind of similar to one another, even though many people might disagree. But one is that there's a divine determination of that which is just. The other is that there is that it's something that can be rationally intuited. Although these 2 can be the same. I mean, that's the whole point of the Mu'tazila. The divine law decreed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also the law that if your reasoning were only good enough, you could figure out by rational intuition.
Yes.
He's saying that as opposed to those 2 theories that may or may not be different from one another, he's got a third theory, which is to negotiate a concept of justice.
Right. And so he's not ruling out by deductive argument. That was the point of that section, that you don't have to rule out the notion of fairness using deductive reasoning.
No, I in fact, I thought the reason he even mentions deductive reasoning is only as a qualification on what constitutes rational intuition or divine revelation. In other words, if you rationally in terms of justice, that is that can be demonstrated by deductive logic as being wrong, then you would have to abandon it. Similarly, for some religions, not all, a religion that a divine revelation that can be ruled out by as contrary to logic can't really be divine.
John Ross has written that the public political culture is not unambiguous. It contains a variety of possible organizing ideas that might be used instead
various ideas of liberty and equality and other ideas of society. All we need claim is the idea of society as a fair system of cooperation is deeply embedded in that culture, and so it is not unreasonable to examine its merits